Welcome to where the screen door slams and the coffee mug hits the table. You're listening to The Family Balancing Act with me, Maureen Huntley, mom, grandmother, and board-certified holistic and functional medicine health coach. Each episode will explore the realities of your day-to-day family life in this modern era of nonstop texts, memes, and technology. After all, how do we keep ourselves sane and our family healthy? I'll have amazing guests and thought-provoking discussions, and we'll take a holistic look at family health, emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual. Whether it's a micro perspective of family involving healthy snacks, teenagers with an attitude, stressed out husbands, partners, adult children, potty training, elder care, grandchildren, college prep, or a macro perspective of world events, including flu, earthquakes, the brainwashing media, finances, and oh, so much more. We'll find a way together. So take a deep breath, exhale, and know that you're not alone. Bring on the Family Balancing Act. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Family Balancing Act, where we are restoring the heart of motherhood and fatherhood, one conversation at a time. If you've been here with me before, well, welcome back. And if this is your first time, it's an honor to have you here. Thank you. So come right in, pull up a chair, grab a tea, a coffee, or a green juice, because we have a lot to talk about today with my guest, Tim Griffin, founder of Move Mantra Coaching. Tim is a dad to 3, a grandpa, and is a certified functional aging specialist, personal fitness coach, yoga instructor, and meditation mentor. I'm Maureen, your host, board-certified integrative holistic and functional medicine health coach, mom, grandmother, wife, and CEO of my family's home operations. If you miss any of our episodes, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, Google, Podbean, Pandora, iHeartRadio Podcast, CTR Radio Network, and more. So sign up for my new monthly newsletter and grab my free year-round holiday stress less tips at maureenhuntley.com, where you can also learn how to work with me. I love what I do, holistic solutions for health and well-being for women, moms, and their families. So deep breath, exhale. It starts with you. So do you make space for what you need to do to carry on, to be physically strong and healthy? Or do you foster that within your family? Do you follow your own advice? Well, listen, before I settle down, isn't that such a strange labeling, isn't it? I don't think I ever settle down. I mean, to settle, to just stay in the mundane, nope, not me. Hey, even the word retirement drives me crazy. To retire is to rest, to sleep, or to stop. I want to be able to keep on moving and doing the work and creating, and no matter what stage of life I'm in or what I'm in now. We're all in the process until we're not, which brings me to being settled down, rather BC, before children, 4 children to be exact. My morning routines were much easier to follow because I didn't have anybody to worry about. I didn't have anything to really do other than to work. My body would hide, of course, my lack of follow through because I was young and I could bounce back easily. Then life carried on. We got married. I had a husband, then children, and then we went to church, jobs, and then there was extended family, health, finances, my mom-mobile, home ownership, repairs, and whatever else was going on in the world. Life. There were at times that just going through the motions just was so angst-filled. Sometimes I was awake and aware, and sometimes I wasn't. I'd work out, and I try to make healthier choices when I could. It would work for some days, and even some years I would be better than others. But what I did for my family, I heard this little voice inside of my head telling me I needed to do it for myself. But I was doing so much. I was running after the kids. I was moving stuff around and making things nice in the house, and meals and cleaning and clearing and washing and loading and repeating, that I felt I was getting a workout even when I wasn't doing anything formally. The truth was, I was getting weaker, body, mind, and spirit. So goals and routines are so important to set. These tiny little steps that build upon each other, that create a leap, a habit, a change. We're always in forever process, right? Not perfection. Things can come up that upset the process, but it takes character strength, one that we all have. It's called perseverance, to get back to doing the work and not giving up on ourselves. So perseverance is via values and action character strength. Perseverance helps to improve skills, talents, and resourcefulness, as well as build all of your other character strengths, which there are 24 of. Perseverance builds commitment. So what is perseverance? It is sticking with things. It means being hardworking and finishing what is started despite barriers and obstacles that arise. It's the pleasure received from completing tasks and projects that are very important to those who are high in their perseverance. Sometimes we must dig deep and muster the will to overcome the thoughts of giving up. Perseverance involves organizing yourself to support your activities, like scheduling and breaks and sticking to them, and rewarding yourself in small ways along the way. But when all else fails, this strength helps us to barrel through until the project is done or our goal is reached. It helps us to build further confidence for further successes and creates goals that we can accomplish. Perseverance involves the voluntary continuation of goal-directed action, despite the presence of challenges, difficulties, and discouragement. And there are two vectors of perseverance. It requires effort for a task and duration to keep up the task. So perseverance is a strength within the virtue category of courage. And it's one of the 6 virtues that subcategorizes the 24 strengths. Courage describes strengths that you can exercise your will and face adversity. So the other strengths in courage are bravery, honesty, and zest. So perseverance has a great company it's in. So even as I've aged, I still am persevering. I'm trying to do my best at being my best. There are days and years that I do it, and times I don't do it. But I don't beat myself up. I carry on, take a deep breath, I exhale. And when I do, when I listen to that little teeny weeny voice inside of me, or the big roar that's coming out, I know that I need to take care of myself. Self-care for my body, mind, and spirit. Tiny steps to the big leap. We are never too old, ever, to make it happen. So our guest today, Tim Griffin, is a fitness and lifestyle coach, as well as a yoga meditation instructor. Among his many certifications, which he has many, he is a mobility specialist and a functional aging specialist. He concentrates his work on building strength and mobility in older adults so that they can live the vibrant life they've earned. He trains and mentors clients online and through his Essential Strength Blueprint program, as well as in person at local yoga studios in the Boston area. And boy, are they lucky to have him. His website is movemantra.com, and he does Zoom classes. Welcome, Tim. It is just so wonderful to have you here. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me, Maureen. I'm wowed by your story there. That was pretty amazing. I think I need to go do some things.
Oh, you're funny. Well, we parents, we know. I mean, you with 3 kids and now a grandchild. Congratulations. And
Thank you.
Yeah, we just I had a grandchild a year ago, so it's like it's great. And
Yeah.
you see how fast life goes when you look at your children and you see where they're at and things they've done, and then now they, one of them has a child, and it's like, whoa,
Yeah.
wait a minute, and that child is growing. You're like, wait.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, my granddaughter's only 2 months old now, a little more than 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because in some ways I don't feel my age, like my chronological age. I'm 60.
Uh-huh.
It's like I don't feel that, and it changes. I feel like I'm, 35 some days, 45 some days.
Me too. Isn't it great?
I don't know. It's kind of weird, but yeah, it's true.
No, I think you're right on when you talk about that. Well, tell you what, why don't you tell us your story first?
Sure.
How'd you get here?
So how did I land in the sort of health and fitness realm was it's my second career. My first career was in a kind of IT and web communications. It was not where my education was. My education was liberal arts. I did English and music and stuff through grad school, actually. But, I needed to make an income for my family and I need to contribute that way. So I went where the money was, which is IT. So I did that for probably 15 years. But around about my 40th birthday, I can remember like a little past my 40th birthday, I just wasn't happy and I wasn't content in my body. I was exhausted. I was really out of shape. And so I started looking around I wanted one thing that would hit all the bases, right? I wanted to do one thing.
Magic pill.
I wanted the magic pill, but I knew it wasn't going to be a pill. I knew it was going to be something I'd have to do, right? I'd have to make time for it and put it in my day. And so what I ended up doing eventually was going to this hot yoga class. I remember it so well. And I didn't pay attention to the schedule. I didn't know what exactly it was going to be. I had been trying out a bunch of different things. And so I just walked into this class and it turns out that it was an intermediate level class. It wasn't a beginner's class. And, it was one of those studios that's heated to 95 degrees and it was 2 hours long. And I walked out of there. I probably spent like 45 minutes in child's pose. I don't know if you know what child's pose is, probably, right? Okay. So it's like you're on the floor, you're like prone on the floor, and you're like, oh my God, what am I doing? What is happening to me? But when I left, it was like this the switch had been flipped. And it was like, okay, I don't know what just happened to me, but wow, okay, I got to do this again. And so I started at that point for probably 2 years, doing the yoga thing, 90 minutes a day, 5-6 days a week. And it did literally change my life and my perspective. So I started to eat better. I was getting more movement into my life. I started to really look at what my values were and how that was manifesting in my priorities and how that mapped to what I did with myself during the day. Up and down, up and down, up and down. Fast forward, I got into my 50s and I realized, okay, the yoga practice has been sustaining me for a long time, but I'm definitely, as I'm aging, my body's changing and my diet had to adjust. Even so, after being in yoga and changing my eating, I had to change it again because it transitioned into what I needed to do. And I noticed that I was just getting weaker. Yoga can make you strong, but there is a point at which you can only do so much with your body weight, right? So you have resistance from your body weight, but at some point you need more than that. So whether that means you're going to lift weights or whether it means you have a hay bale on your shoulder or you're lifting 30-pound bags of mulch for your garden or whatever it is, you need something else. So that's when I kind of started to look at strength training and ended up getting certified and becoming a trainer. And so I've been combining the two, strength training with yoga and mobility stuff. And that really has worked well just for me personally. And I find that it really works for my clients really well also. So it's kind of a long zigzaggy way, which is kind of like life is like that, right? You think it's going to be straight ahead, but it's been like this. And often I felt like, I was like pushing a barge upriver sideways, like it was not facing the right, so it didn't feel
It's
always
on
very
the
efficient to
Suez
me.
Canal.
It was like, it just didn't feel very efficient, but that was my path. So that's kind of how
Wow.
I've landed here. Yeah.
That's fabulous. I love how, even though I too started out in the arts. I'm
Mm-hmm.
and as an actor, director, music person,
Mm.
and but how life takes us on this journey, and 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 actually, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. You would never have gotten to where you are now at where you began because you haven't
Right.
walked the path. And I love that you got stuck in a hot yoga class for 2 hours. It was like, whap, wake up.
Yeah. It was like, Tim, pay attention. Like, what are you doing? Like, you didn't even read what the class description was. You didn't even know what you were getting into. It
But
worked out.
I love, actually, when I got started in yoga, I never followed through. I just didn't do it. I tried because it was like the thing everybody was doing. I had friends of mine becoming
Mm-hmm.
certified in it. And then I went
Yeah.
to a hot yoga class. I didn't really pay attention either much to what it was. It was only 45 minutes because I did look for the beginner word in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I loved it. I couldn't do half the things, but
Yeah.
I loved it because I loved the heat of, and then it warmed up my muscles that had
Mm-hmm.
obviously atrophied and become like stone. And it helped tremendously. And we have so many topics to touch on today, but
Sure.
just a question for you: is hot yoga good for older adults, do you think?
That's a great question. I don't think it's bad. We'd have to define what hot is, because it could be anywhere from like, a room that's set at like 78 degrees, or it could be a room that's set at 95 and you end up over 100 with all the people in there. I don't do a whole lot of hot yoga now. I do it I do it sort of out of nostalgia at this point, because there was that period in my life where all I wanted to do was get in a hot room and sweat for an hour and a half, and
Yeah.
that was really great for me in my 40s and even into my 50s. I started to turn away from it because I just got it into other things, strength training, so I don't know. I mean, I know older folks who do the hotter yoga practice still, but not like 5-6 days a week,
Oh,
and I
got it.
think that
No.
for people that are in our age bracket, it's more like that can get extreme, and it is all about balancing, like you were saying. It's like you figure out what your values are, and then you factor that in.
Mm-hmm.
And the heat, the 100-degree 90-minute yoga class to me is on the extreme end of things. So for me personally, I
Yeah.
mean, I have clients who do it. I have clients who don't. So I don't know if there's a
Yeah.
definitive answer to that, really. It might just be personal.
Yeah, probably. I just was wondering because of the benefit of the heat being able to relax the muscles, because
Yeah.
or even if it were like chair yoga in a hot yoga
In a
studio,
hot
so that
room.
it would help in a hot room too, and it being
Well,
like 80 degrees or 85 degrees and not boiling, which I kind of.
so what I think though is, like, I think there's more benefit in the practitioner being able to generate their own heat, like,
Mhm.
and getting the practice of moving around and paying attention to what you need just to warm your body up. And it doesn't take that long. So it might feel almost like a temperature massage, if you will. So it's a very passive thing where you just sit in a hot room and you get relaxed or you get
Mhm.
loose. That might work, but I think it's better to just be able to move around for 5 minutes, and get yourself warm from the inside out, honestly.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Spoken like a true yogi. Comes from within, comes from within.
Yeah.
So what, in your opinion, is the difference between biological and chronological age?
Sure. So chronological age is the obvious one. You were born on a certain date. Now is a certain date. How old are you? right?
That's slack on here.
Yeah, there's a way, and I don't know the science. I can't speak the science about this just now, but there's a way to calculate sort of with metrics what your biological age is. So that is like, what's the state of all your systems in your body? What are your tissues like? What are your joints like? And there's a way to kind of map what your actual biological age would be. So in other words, if you're somebody who's been pretty sedentary their whole adult life, they haven't paid attention to what they've eaten, they're probably drinking or whatever, you and I could be sitting here and both be 60 years old, but my chronological age might be 60, but I might be 80 biologically, and there's a way to look at somebody and figure that out, so it's pretty clear. I know I have friends and distant family members who, are obviously biologically older than me because they just decided not to take care of themselves. So it's that kind of thing. It's like, what is the state of all your systems in your body? You're in, compare that to what your actual calendar age is. That's all.
That's great. Thank you. Because I get so affected. I feel it emotionally when I see people so much younger than me who, biologically are presenting, be it movement, be it and just other health factors, older than me. And I mean, it's sad. And I'm not saying that I'm like, like biologically 35. I'm probably not. There's like no way. But it's just because of the whole epidemic of obesity and diabetes, and it's blown up. And I know, like, back when I started this whole journey of health and wellness, we were definitely talking about it.
Yeah.
But
I like this idea of the difference between fault and responsibility. So, when you have compassion for family members or clients who, need to get their health in order, you can look to the culture for part of that. It's like, we are trained to be sedentary, essentially. Like, we are offered so many conveniences that just allow us to sit and not move our bodies, right? So if you can apply that as like, all right, well, you can give some of that fault to the culture, but really the responsibility is the person's. Like, the person has to realize, like, okay, this is what I can do if I choose to do that, but the consequence is going to be my health, physically, emotionally, spiritually, all that stuff. So for me, it's like finding compassion for my clients, figuring out what is the best gateway to get them started, like whatever they're open to, meet them where they are, like from yoga. And then to instill in them this perseverance that you talk about, which is great, through responsibility and through really looking at what their value systems are and how that manifests. Yeah. That's
great. Yeah, that's why I do love the values in action character strengths, because
I love that.
It's great.
I think if you gave me a quiz on the 24 strengths, I don't know if I'd pass.
Don't worry. I have them listed right here on my wall.
I'm sure you do.
And it's one of those tools that I use in my practice. But I feel, everybody in that's out there functioning or not functioning in the world should have an idea what they're strong in and what they're not. What are their lower strengths. It doesn't mean they're not your strengths. Perseverance often shows up low for people. Actually, that's one of the ones that shows up in the lower range, because we don't use it as much, because we get complacent.
Right. Well, that might point to the whole convenience culture too, that we have easier options. If you know that you need to persevere in just basic habits, like, whether you have a morning or evening routine that helps you sort of get yourself in line for the next day or whatever, it's just so much easier to watch a Netflix show or like and have a glass of wine. It's just easier to do that. Our culture just keeps giving us these things that are easier to do. So you've got to find that perseverance somewhere. And I think, if that is a strength that's low in the, in the standings or whatever, that's part of it.
That it definitely, I mean, you've got phones, you've got iPads, you've got computers, you've got the television, you've got all sorts of nonsense out there. And we also have other people and their stuff, hence the Family Balancing Act. It's the things come up, they get in the way. We step aside from taking care of ourselves. And it takes a while to get back in the game. So how do you get your clients back in the game?
Yeah, great. Good question. It's different, as you probably know, for each client. So I work individually with people. And like I mentioned earlier, I look for whatever gateway is present for them, right? So if it's, whether it's nutrition or movement or meditation, whatever like they're interested in. So they'll come to me with a certain interest, and that's where we start. And we want to start with simple habits. So I have to sort of figure out like, all right, what are they doing now? And how can we leverage that to move them in a better direction? Or, and, that's either like, it's kind of a combination of what I see they need to do and what they have set as a personal goal. And there's kind of a middle ground that you look for to help them with that. So, and start small, start really small, because you need those little wins to build some excitement and some willingness to persevere. Because all the distractions and all the easier stuff is going to be present all the time. And so you need to give them these little wins. So sometimes just having a morning habit or an evening habit is a good start. If they're gung-ho to work out, then our program workouts for them and we get going. It really depends on where they are. And I do nutrition counseling also. I mean, I'm not a nutritionist or a dietitian, but we talk about what we consume. So the larger, like what we consume, like the screen, the drink, food, all that stuff. And how does that impact them, and see where we can make the most progress for them right away.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Because not only are we consuming, we're absorbing.
Right.
We're absorbing all this consumption.
Osmosis.
Right. It's like you have just sucked in the thoughts that are coming off and I call it a tell me a vision. It's not, television. No, it's a tell me a vision. It's telling me the vision, and I will suck it in and just take it in. We're taking everything in, be it our phones, texting, memes, all sorts of junk that mean nothing, and that feeds our cellular base. It feeds our bodies. And now through meditation is a beautiful way to begin that release. When you start working with clients around meditation, what does that look like?
What does that look like? It's it's another manifestation of that whole phrase, like simple, not easy, right? So it's basically, what have you done so far? And we start there, even with simply breathing for like even a minute or two, trying to pay attention to your breath, and then from that, we would grow it into your physical posture. How do you sit? What's the best way to sit to breathe? What's the best way to sit to minimize distractions from within your own body? Because often what happens with seated meditation, at least, people don't know how to sit. They actually don't know where to put their body parts to make their spine not get all stressed out after 2 minutes, so they can, and their hips are tight or whatever. So it is a little bit about body posture and about breathing, at least at first. And then, are they open to visualizations? Do they want to do it all guided, or do they want more silence? That kind of thing. So it's with most of this stuff, it's start simple, but know that it's not necessarily going to be easy. And then build up over time, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Can you do 20 minutes?
That's great. That's great to get there. That's why I always sign everything, all my emails. I think you probably saw it, deep breath, exhale. Because when we don't breathe, I have this, I read this somewhere a long time ago, and maybe it's a yoga thing, and you know this very well, but when we're not breathing when someone is speaking, we're not taking it in. We don't hear
Oh,
them.
I haven't actually heard that.
So it's like you don't hear if you're not breathing. And sometimes there's a very good reason for that, because we don't want to hear what they're saying. Plenty of times, somebody's yelling at you or whatever, or there's complaining, the driver who's driving next to cutting you off. Now you're not breathing, you're just steaming.
Well, so that's really great, because, and I like the fact that in the last, 5, 10, 15 years, just breathing practices alone are seeping more into Western practice, because it used to be like breath, or pranayama, as it's called in yoga, techniques are just like, oh, that's the woo-woo stuff over there. We're not going to really like whatever, but I always like to say, like, Western science is catching up. Like, they're actually catching up now. And so in a lot of these, like even in the latest sort of strength and mobility trainings that you might do, breath is really prominent. Like, breath is there. And so you even have people who are much more focused on breath in the gym, like when they're doing just straight up weightlifting. You know what I mean? So I have clients who are often holding their breaths at different places where they shouldn't be. And then they realize, wow. So when I'm ever tense during my day, I could be holding my breath, and I don't even know it.
We all do it. We all do it. It's a interesting phenomenon. And I always try to catch myself and go, wow, that person was speaking to me and I didn't breathe, or I was breathing. I was very shallow breath, because you have to stay alive, but it's like I wasn't really sucking it in and releasing it. It's just crazy stuff. But you talk about tiny steps, like little Kaizen steps. And then you build a process or a habit out of those little tiny steps. In working with your clients, let's say, I saw where you on your website, you said you work with 90-year-olds. Let's say a 90-year-old comes in, and where do you begin there with, let's say, someone who is not, they've moved throughout their life, but now they're slowing down and they realize they're getting weaker.
Yeah. So the place to start there is often, for me at least, like, what is their self-perception, about what they're capable of at 90 years old, right? And I actually have one of my clients right now is 95, and she's one of my favorites. And what I love about her is that her attitude is like, no, I'm not done. No, I'm not going to sit down. I have things that I'm interested in. I want to do this. I want to talk about this. So it really is assessing where they're at with their attitude and mentally, for the work. And then, there's all the usual assessments that I would do with anybody of any age. How do you move? What do you want to work on? Do you have a goal? Any of that. And so it is a conversation. Fall prevention is huge, at that particular point. So a lot of what we might do in programming is lower body strengthening and to build confidence. And you can map, there are certain muscles in your body that are really important for balance. And they are the muscles that are completely soft when you're sitting. So it's like,
I never thought about that way.
Yeah.
It's the blubber that's hanging off of my.
It's like you're not.
bones.
Yeah. So, with somebody who's 90, it really is like, how do they want to move? What do they want to do? At that point, a lot of habits, I find that the older folks that are, 80 or 90 are like, look, they'll tell me straight up too. It's just like, look, I'm not going to change this. I love my, my Pinot, 2 glasses of Pinot at night. I'm having that. So just don't try to talk me out of it. And that's fine. So if there are definitely limits that they have, we work with that. But it is more about balance, really, for them at that point, and the ability to walk, even. Like walking is like,
huge. And look, I when I was away this winter, I went to 2 different warm places, nice and lovely. And I'm not 90, but I, speaking of walking, and it was dark in a parking lot, and it was a parking lot, so they had those things where you pull, I don't know what you call it, they're like car stops. You
Okay.
pull your car up. You pull your car up,
Yep.
and it's like they're on an angle, and you keep your car from moving forward.
Yeah. What is that called? I'm totally
I don't
blanking on what that
know.
is.
I don't know. Like I tried to
Curb
describe
stop? I
it.
have no idea.
No, and that's so I just started calling it a car stop. I don't.
Okay.
Cat sitting on my lap here. So the car stopped. So it was the same. It was painted the same color as the tarmac, as the parking lot,
Oh.
and there were no lights, like just very dim lights off of cars. And I clipped one, and I went forward.
Oh.
But because I do yoga, and I
Mm-hmm.
believe I was pretty sedentary for a few years there. I used to be really into working out, and then I just kind of stopped for 5 years doing just
Mm-hmm.
walking and, a
Mm-hmm.
few other bits and pieces. And then I got back into yoga, um, 14 months ago, where I really started to get back into it. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I haven't been to a chiropractor in 14 months. And I was going every 2 to 3 weeks. And
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
I just learned how to work and stretch and do it. And at any rate,
Yep.
when I tripped over this thing, I didn't fall flat on my face, which I could see. It's like one of those things where you're going through it and it's like
Slow
slow
motion.
motion. And I,
Yep.
I like tripped, and then I put my left hand down and I pushed myself back up, and I kind of went, and I'm in and out of, I'm doing a wobble. The wobble I
Okay.
talked about prior to getting it, but it's that
Yeah.
wobble, and it all worked out fine. Like no scrapes or anything, and everybody around me was like, the jaw dropped, like they couldn't. They're like, "What did you just do?" I was like, "Lady Grace here," but in the meantime, I could feel like the sciatic stretch. It's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
but you work it out. Like I bounced back from that within a day, 2 days. It was easy.
So, right. So, like, what I like to talk to people about is, and I get testimonials sort of like speaking to this also, is that when you bump into these things in life, if you've been working on your movement patterns and you are trying to be a stronger human at whatever age you're at, whether it's 90 or 40, doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
You will have less recovery time in a situation like that. And you might even just prevent an injury completely. Like I've had clients tell me like, yeah, I was doing this thing the other day and I had to reach up over my head and pull this 30-pound bag off of the top shelf. And my shoulder was completely pain-free. And they've been dealing with shoulder issues for years. And what we're finding out actually in a lot of the literature on longevity is that the one metric that stands out the most as far as sort of longer in life vitality is strength. And that goes for any age. You want to be strong. Now, whether that's a yoga strong or you do weightlifting strong, it kind of doesn't matter. You just want to move your body and continue to focus on being stronger. So in a situation like that, you prevented yourself from getting injured on the curb stop or whatever we're calling it, right? Yeah. And
That's
you
another
rebounded
good one.
faster.
Right. No, it was like I was quite stunned. I was really, oh, look, I never allow any animals in my space. And this one has come to visit me today. His
I have
name's
one back there
Mello.
too.
Oh, yes.
There.
I see.
He's being very quiet today. His name is Angus.
Just chilling. Vegas. I love it.
Angus.
Angus.
Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking like Vegas, like a Vegas nerve, not the city. But
No.
Angus.
That's like Angus, the Celtic god of poetry and something. I forget.
I love it. That's great. So like even Angus is like strong. And does Angus do yoga with you?
He did for a while. He's an older dude like me. He's got like gray on his chin and
he's in
he's
child's
mostly
pose
just chill.
No, I'm just
He's in side-lying child's pose. Right.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
That's great. So you had mentioned about you could be any age, like 60, 40, 90, whatever, and to keep moving and to doing something that's like making you strong. So what is some advice that we could give younger people so that they don't get to this? Or if there's just grandparents listening to this right now, or older people, or people in their 50s listening to this, what can you advise your children to be doing? Or maybe they'll do it with you.
Yeah. The one that always comes to mind first is walk and go out and walk outside. That has benefits like beyond physical benefits, gets you away from consuming screens, gets you outside, you get fresh air, your body gets moving. It has, I think that's the one thing I would tell people to do, whatever age you are. If you like to be outside, especially if you like to get into the woods where there's trees and other sorts of obstacles you have to negotiate, even better. Yeah. So that's the first thing I would say. And then I would ask them, how are they eating and what other movement things did they do? Mm-hmm. That's where I'd start. Yeah.
That's good coaching.
Yeah.
Very good coaching.
I think so.
Do you run workshops or retreats? Can you talk?
Yeah. So, sure. So right now what I do is I have this online program that I run, and it involves Zoom sessions and other stuff. I teach some public classes here in the Boston area. And I do workshops, at local studios. Haven't done a retreat in quite a while. I mean, we're coming out of, well, I don't know if it's safe to say we're coming out of the time of the pandemic.
Right. No,
thing.
We can say it now, but yeah, it's, yeah. I call it crazy. It's just breathe, time to live fully.
So, yeah, so I want to get back into leading some retreats, but I haven't done that in quite a while. I haven't even been on one in quite a while. So
where do you run them generally when you have them?
Well, my preference these days would be I have a sort of a heart space for Costa Rica. But I've been really recently reconnecting with my ancestry, which is predominantly Irish, or at least that's how I identify it. So I did do a little recon trip recently over to Ireland. Beautiful, like in ways that you don't realize. So I want to try to work out something where I could get back there and take some people with me. That would be fun.
That'd be great. Yeah. Let's stay in touch on that front, because
absolutely.
One, I would definitely help promote that for you, but also I have some. I too. That's my.
Oh, right. That's right. You have an Irish connection. Yeah.
I definitely do. Yes, and my connection. Yes, and is to get back to doing that myself, and it's great. And actually, this podcast and radio show will launch in a week, which is the week of St. Patrick's Day. So of course we're talking about this.
Okay, let's talk about Ireland.
Yeah, right. Let's talk about Ireland. But this is all good. It's it's a journey, this thing of just finding our way to health and wellness. And I love that you bring so much to your clients, and now and you're letting us in on it.
Thank you.
Because we need to stay committed in any way we can. And I know when my clients are working with me and when your clients are working with you, and they have a coach walking with them, beside them, it's like not telling them what to do. You're the guide on the side, as they say, guide on the side.
Yeah, and that's great. I like that.
Just to hold space and love them up and make it happen. Before we close today, can I ask you how do you yourself stay focused on your goals, your tiny steps?
Great question, because I was just thinking in my head, a lot of times with any age client, there's some internal resistance to accepting help, right? And for me personally, even as a coach, even though I have all this stuff in my head and I know things, I need a coach myself. Like I have to have somebody else that is going to do that thinking, that holding space for me, so I don't have to do it. There's a strength coach who has this quote that I love, and it goes something, I'm probably going to get a little bit wrong, but he says, a strength coach or a coach that creates their own programming has a doofus for a client. Right? And I don't think it was probably, it wasn't said that nicely. It was more like,
Yeah.
the coach who creates his own program has a dumbass for a client, kind of like that. So
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
you need to if you
jackass.
offload that, then you also have an accountability piece, because we're human beings. So it's like, and I will be like, yeah, I could have that chocolate. I'll just turn my brain off for a second and eat that.
I deserve this.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. Like, how do you treat yourself? There's a whole nother discussion, right? So I have a coach that I hire.
That's great.
And they do my programming for me, and they keep me accountable on things, and they know I know things, so they call me on stuff. So you can be really smart. You might have read all the longevity studies online, but to have an accountability partner, to have a coach can be really helpful and important. And the other thing is, like you said, with perseverance, I keep wanting to come back to that. Persevere in small ways. You know what I mean? It's like, so if you have decided I'm going to work out 1 hour 3 times a week, and you get to that point where you're like, I got this phone call I got to do. I'm going to not work out at all. It's like, no, you could do the phone call and then do 15 minutes of something. It's like, so just parse it down. It's much better to stay consistent, 10 minutes 3 times a week than it is to do 1 hour, hour and a half, 2 hours once a week. You want to build in the habit, reinforce. So those are sort of the things that I would say up front, is like, get a coach, get somebody to help you, buddy up with somebody.
Accountability,
so you're not doing
partner,
it by yourself.
Somebody. Yeah. None of us can do it on our own. Like, even, moms, dads. I mean, when you're raising your kids, it's like, you couldn't, if you didn't have other people to talk to, other guys and moms, dads, like at I don't know if your kids played soccer or football or basketball or whatever, you're standing there on the sidelines, and, you can have those moments of like, I want to get back to working out, but I'm standing here on the field watching my kid play, and your kid play, and it's great. I don't want to miss this moment, but how, maybe they could all just band together and run in place while they're watching.
I know. I was thinking that in my head. You could stretch while you're there on the sidelines.
But I was that mom standing on the sidelines with Dunkin' Donuts munchkins, there's that. It's like, wow.
Right.
So the truth is that the wisdom that older people hold is really needed, because we've walked that path. We've done that stuff. And it doesn't work. The payback on it is awful, because now at this point in life, as you move beyond 45 and on up 50, 60, and you are paying, you have to clear that junk out of you, because you've been stuffing it in because Junior needed it and all of his friends. I mean, I had a closet in my kitchen pantry that was filled with like those roll-ups, those fruit roll-ups. And then I've had kids, like I've run into some of my friends' kids and that have now gotten older, and they're like, you were the mom with the best pantry. I was like, no, I wasn't. I was bad.
Right.
I was so bad. And my exercise consisted of my lifting the boxes up onto the, shelves.
Yeah. So how does a busy parent like fit in the self-care? Like that's a huge challenge, especially if you have younger kids. Like, how do you do that? It's, and like you mentioned it in your intro, it's like, have a schedule, it's like, I tell my clients, it's like, all right, you're going to do 3 workouts a week, put them in your calendar, right? It is a meeting. It is a meeting, an important meeting that you have, make it be in your brain. It is one of the most important business meetings in your life, right? It is mission critical to your life. And so, and make it inviolable so that it can't be moved, or it can be moved to another time, but you don't just delete it from your calendar. That'll work 90% of the time, but there'll be days where you just can't do it. That's understandable. So,
and then you have to give yourself grace and love. But I think exactly what you said is like, even younger, older, anybody who wants to start to get themselves on a healthier path is put it in your calendar. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And I love a calendar also that has tasks, like a
Yeah.
task space where you,
Yeah.
because we already do these little steps for our health. We automatically do it. You get up in the morning, you walk to the bathroom. That's a task.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go to the bathroom, you brush your teeth, hopefully.
Yep.
You
Yep.
shower, or you do all
Yeah.
the other basics. You put
Yep.
on other clothing, then because that you're automatically doing. And then you can put an add-on to that. I'm going
Right.
to, now just stretch.
Yeah. So in my calendar, I didn't want to get, as first I started out thinking about it, I didn't want to get super granular about it. So what I have in my calendar is I have a block that just says morning routine, and that in my calendar, it's 30 minutes, but sometimes it goes a little less, sometimes it goes a little over. And then I have my workouts as another block in my calendar. The evening routine, I don't have it in my calendar. I just know that for me personally, at 9:30, all my screens go off. And then it might take me 30 minutes to an hour to get to sleep. I might I don't know, set up my coffee for the morning or whatever, in the evening, but I have some awake time where I'm not engaged on the screen, and I might read, some fiction, or sometimes I read nonfiction. I'm trying to read more fiction just to get my brain out of the work mode. But I'm so bad about that. I'm reading nonfiction still more than I probably want to, but so put those things in your calendar, but don't go crazy. Like, don't be like, okay, I'm going to now I'm going to drink some water. Now I'm going to have some coffee, bundle it in a way that makes sense for you.
Yeah. Just to make it a part of your day. Like, as they're saying, it's like you get up, you have your morning routine, and it slides right into doing something that you can then build on. And that becomes a routine also, exercise routine, a strength building routine. Are there things around the house you can use for weights?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. This was so highlighted so much during, the height of COVID. It's like you can use gallons of milk. You can use your laundry. You can use, for me, I have a big dog, his food bags are like 35 pounds. You can use those. You can easily get these days, you can get all kinds of equipment that's adjustable. So instead of thinking you have to have a big rack of stuff, you can have something that's really small and compact and it's adjustable. And I even had at one point, I had clients strategically placing things around their house. So they would put so for me, I would put I don't know if you know what a kettlebell is. It's like a weight with a big handle.
Yeah.
I would put that between the living room and the bathroom. So occasionally when I'm walking back and forth, there's a kettlebell. I'll do a set of squats.
So that's brilliant.
Just position that stuff around your house. Maybe you put a suspension system somewhere off a door, and so you put it in your way. It's like you put it there. If you're distractible, especially if you're working at home, right? It's really hard because everything is right here. I need to see those cues, those visual cues, and that would help, at times do so.
That's a great idea. That and sticky notes. Although I ignore sticky notes, but if I'm going to trip over a kettlebell, I'm going to move it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, true. Sticky notes are visible for the first couple of days, and then it's like they're filtered out.
Yeah.
For me,
you need blaring signs with lights. So as we close, because you're just an amazing guest, thank you so much. I just
thank you for having me.
Love hanging out with you here.
Cool.
Do you have any one last balancing the tip for our
balancing? So balancing in the larger sense, not the physical sense.
Could be whatever it is.
Self-compassion, I think, is probably the biggest one, because inevitably you will fall short of your own critical brain, and you can't expect to, even with your calendar. I always have to shift things around and change. So if you have a little self-compassion practice that you do, or you just know enough to stop and take a breath and say, okay, I'm not that bad. Or whatever little phrase works for you. If you have a coach, they give you a phrase that works for you, or if you have a mantra from your practice or whatever you have, it's the self-compassion part of it, and then get back on the path.
Persevere.
Start again. Like in meditation, it's like you will inevitably get distracted. You will inevitably stray from whatever the point of the meditation is. Self-compassion, start again.
I love it. That's great. Yeah. Well, really, thank you so very much. If we're just going to take a moment before we close here, sure. I want to let our listeners know that all of the information, Tim's info, my info, will be listed in the description for the shows on all of our podcasts. It'll also be at CTR Radio. And so if you just take a moment to close your eyes and put your hands on your heart. And you can breathe in through your nose. Just take a deep breath in and hold it. And exhale out through your mouth. And know that you're not alone. You're on the Family Balancing Act.